What's up, everybody? We are live. Good morning. This is the CanesInSight Daily podcast powered by Andrade and Levine Accident Attorneys. Miami in the news yet again. People can't stop talking about Miami. It's amazing how relevant we still are after not being in the playoff for the history of the playoff. We get talked about like a playoff team, so I guess that's a positive. But the article about Jackson Cantwell coming out from Pete Nakos saying that Miami has the highest NIL offer in there. Again, Miami making headlines on the minds of opposing coaches and leakers. We'll talk about all of that here and what this really means and what it doesn't mean and what's really kind of going on behind the scenes here. Obviously got recruiting to get to. Ton of stuff always happening in the Miami Hurricanes world, taking your questions. First, want to talk about some folks that don't need to leak misconceptions or leak mischaracterizations to people. They keep it straight. That's Andrade and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Andrade and Levine. Pete, get in here.
Are you hopping off the Nakos train this morning?
You know, he's just a messenger. He's just a messenger for coaches that want to leak narratives to influence recruits. So I don't begrudge him. My boy, Big Nakos. You know, it's funny when I send you a text with Nakos' name, it automatically capitalizes all the letters just from all the excited texts we've sent when we get a guy jumping in the portal. But you know, in this case, what's happening here? Pete, pull up the tweet so people know
pulling up the tweet right now.
Basically, a tweet came out yesterday. Jackson Cantwell, Miami battling Georgia. And look, I said on the bank yesterday, for those who missed it, I think you just put the video out, right? The bank separate segment on YouTube. We have it also on CanesInsight.com, 7 million posts and counting for free, where I go over Miami's recruiting and portal stuff. I mentioned that we're looking good for Keontae Scott. He committed. I mentioned Mohamed Torre. Miami's looking good there. We'll see where that one goes. I like Miami's chances based on everything I've heard to this point. So we'll see. But I mentioned that, Georgia has the momentum with Jackson Cantwell. Not going to lie, Miami looked like the team that was going to get Jackson Cantwell a couple weeks ago. Georgia's got all the momentum, and this would be a really devastating loss if he were to go to Georgia. So that's one part of it, which we talked about, hate reporting, that kind of stuff, but it is what it is. But then this is what upsets me. You got an article from Pete Nakos from sources, anonymous, saying Miami has the top NIL offer for number one recruit Jackson Cantwell, but will it matter? Valuing it in the $2 million range. So, first of all, when you see a story like this, you got to wonder, where did this come from? And in this case, the agenda is crystal clear with Georgia, who knows how to play this game, and reporters that will do what they say. The agenda is, hey, Cantwell's deciding between Georgia and UM. Miami has a reputation for paying players. We just saw it yesterday with Will Howard on that interview he gave. Let's make it seem like if Cantwell were to go to Miami, it's only because of money. Because if he then chooses Miami for offensive line development, he likes the area, whatever it is, it looks like he just followed the bag and it's a stigma on the kid. So that is what's happening here. This is a strategic leak by people who want Jackson Cantwell in Georgia to say, Miami has the top offer, so therefore, if he goes there, it's for money, and he's going to look bad. It's all PR, and it's just using these reporters as pawns. That is what's happening here, 100%. There's not really much more to this operation than what's happening there. It's first of all not true. From what I understand, both Georgia and Oregon are over $2 million. First of all, the Miami number, forget about where they got that from. They didn't talk to anybody in Miami. Number two, Georgia and Oregon are both over $2 million, and I understand Oregon has the highest offer, well over $2 million, not Georgia or Miami. So this is all just, again, game playing and trying to influence the process by creating a narrative that Jackson Cantwell is simply following the bag if he goes to Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, unfair to the kid, number one, because everything that we've seen is that he's a guy who's trying to make a decision, at least based on, what the important things are. At least that's what he's saying, right? And that's the vibe that people around the recruitment are getting. And I just, in general, I don't know, man. Until I think putting these numbers out there is, it's interesting, but
It's all strategy. And look, here's the reality of the situation, right? Georgia's a great program. Probably, in my opinion, the best program in the country right now, top to bottom. Okay. So you're not going to hear me talk down Georgia as a program. They built it to something that's a machine. Started with Mark Richt 25 years ago and has continued to where it is now. So salute to Georgia. They're not an offensive line development school. And you'll hear people say, oh, they get guys in the draft. They had a lot of guys in the draft. First of all, some of that was with prior offensive line coaches, but then let's move that aside. They're getting 5-star elite players coming in. Are those guys getting better? You tell me. We saw Coach Searles when he was here at Miami. I think everybody pretty much agreed he was not very good, or at least didn't do a very good job. That was one of the weak links of the team every single year. If you remember our offensive lineman doing splits against Clemson, remember that game? Clemson was making our guys do splits like a cheerleader. St. Clemson team that got pushed around a couple years ago under a different offensive line regime. So that's Searles. We know he's not very good. Then you look at Georgia with all those 5-stars, all those NFL players, and they finished 102nd in rushing this year. 102nd in rushing. So if you have draftable players and they had multiple draft picks, how are you finishing 102nd in rushing? Cam Ward is shaking Roger Goodell's hand as the number 1 overall pick without a scratch on him. And Carson Beck comes to Miami injured. So obviously, whatever's happening on the offensive line at Georgia is not working, considering what's coming in, which is NFL talent out of high school that is still talented enough to go to the NFL, but is not producing and getting developed at the University of Georgia. So if Cantwell were to choose Miami, the biggest reason would not be this fake number that's leaked to create a narrative. The reason would be because Miami has a much better offensive line than Georgia, despite Georgia getting all kinds of blue chip players on the front end. So that's really what this whole thing is about. And again, I think that there's a good chance Jackson Cantwell goes to Georgia. And if he does, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for it. Athens is probably a fun place to go as a college kid coming from Knicks in Missouri to Athens. That sounds like a lot of fun. They're winning. They're going to have a great defense. They're a winning program. So playing in the SEC, full stadiums, I could see the appeal of going to Georgia. But it's not a money factor with Miami. It is the fact that Miami's offensive line, when you turn on the tape of our offensive line last year and Georgia's offensive line last year, there's no comparison. Miami's was significantly better and better coached.
And I from what I understand, D, I think people at Miami get the sense that once he makes his commitment, he'll be wrapped up. Like, not that if he chooses Georgia, it's not to say that Mario and staff won't continue to pursue, because we understand that that's the relentless nature of what it is. But we see a lot of times when guys commit, they still kind of remain like, all right, we're still going to fight. And we still feel like we have a good, keep ourselves in the battle. But I get the sense that they kind of feel like this is a final decision. Not that George is the choice. I'm saying the final decision. I'm saying just like whatever he ends up deciding here would be it.
Yeah, I don't see Cantwell as one of those guys that commits to a million schools. Pepe maybe have a better chance of flipping. That's me speculating a little bit.
I've heard that too, and I heard that last night as well. That if this does go the other way, that expect Miami to, which, like we said a couple days ago, I don't think they're giving up on Pepe, whether they get Cantwell or not. But I think this would bring their efforts, pretty high there.
Yeah, and I think your hope with a guy like Pepe, and look, we're getting far down the road. Cantwell, they're battling hard right now. But in terms of like a guy like Pepe, I think you'd want something to happen at USC, right? Right now they're rolling. They paid their GM $1 million. They're getting a ton of, they have the number one recruiting class. They're getting Samoans. They're doing great off the field. If USC has a bad season on the field, which when you look at USC's roster, I find it to be quite lacking. Jaden Maivia with Lincoln Riley he could be better in year 2. He throws a lot of picks. He has talent. Offensive line stinks. They lost their best running back to Texas Tech. They have 2 good receivers. And then the defense, is okay. No difference makers there. and they didn't really do too much in the portal, I think, to close that gap. So you could see USC having a tough year, and then Riley getting some pressure, and maybe there's a shakeup there. Probably gets another year because the recruiting class is good. But that's one thing. But look, make no mistake, Miami goes 0-2 on Cantwell and Pepe. That's a big loss.
Mhm.
And there hasn't been a huge recruiting win at tackle since probably Mauano and Okanlola in 2023. So 24, 25. You didn't win a ton of battles on the offensive line for a team that prides itself on winning those battles in terms of recruiting. So if you go 0-2 then on the top 2 tackles in the country in 26, not where you want to be. So Miami's going to battle hard here on Jackson Cantwell.
Nick Isaac has a comment here, which we actually talked about yesterday on the show with Mike Ryan. He says, "I love the narrative though. Let recruits think we quote unquote overpay so they come knocking on the door."
Yeah, I just, here's what I'll say, and this is just a general comment. We have seen a lot of things with this regime or this era to criticize. Number one on top of the list by far is they still haven't won the ACC, which was the same problem you had for 20 years. Number 2 on the list, probably that Georgia Tech game and some of the communications issues you've seen both with not just last year, but the first couple of years on both sides of the ball. So there's a lot to criticize if you want to go in that direction. What I will say for sure is Miami is a lot more relevant in 2025 than they were in 2021, 22.
22 even. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say, right there let's say 21 at the end of the year where we were. I mean, no, we were just a joke pretty much. You look at the Alabama game and didn't deserve to be on the field. So I think now you're seeing us being treated with more respect by these big boys, mostly because of the recruiting success, but also, on the field, Miami with their offensive line and their ability to win games that way is getting more respect in these big games. So when I see an article like this and teams actively working against Miami, and the one positive I could say is Miami is back in the conversation because they're in these battles. It's Miami and Georgia for Cantwell. It's not like Miami. They're talking about Miami for no reason. Even with Georgia retaking the momentum lately, it's still that battle. But it'd be a tough loss, man. You literally go 0-2 on Pepe and Cantwell at that position where those guys typically go from 5-star offensive tackle to first round of the draft or second round of the draft. That would hurt, man. That would definitely be a punch on the chin.
Question here from Mel. Are they going to push for Johnny Jones? From what I heard last night, and D, again, you're more in tune with recruiting stuff, but I heard they're going to make a push for him.
Yeah, let me know. What did you hear last night, Pete? I haven't talked to you. We haven't debriefed.
Well, there's some stuff that I'll tell you off the air as well. I think there's certain questions being asked by the Cantwell. I'll say this. I think there's certain questions right now at this stage of the recruitment being asked by the Cantwell side that leads you to believe there's serious negative recruiting going on. And welcome to recruiting for the number 1 player in the country. This is not something to feel bad for Miami. This is the nature of the recruiting, but I think there's questions being asked, and I'll talk to you about this after, D, but like stuff that doesn't have really any relevance to the player in the situation, but stuff that's being brought up that, again, shouldn't really be a factor. But I think that there's some more so from Georgia's side here, because I think this is, like we've said, Miami, Georgia battle. But I think that's the sense that people are getting, that there's just like wrenches being thrown into it right now that they didn't necessarily think a couple weeks ago they'd have to fight against.
Yeah, that sounds exactly right. And this article is just another part of the PR campaign, right? And when you're the number 1 program in the country or number 2 at worst, I mean, you have advantages. So it's not like this is just some, upstart causing problems. I mean, they have things they could say that are true. they're the number 1 program in the country. But what I will say is 100% not true.
Well, what I heard was a very petty thing. So I'll leave it at that. And again, not to tease it too much, but this is the stuff that goes on in these recruitments. You have to overcome them. There's some stuff at Georgia that's not very pretty. If you look at their situation off the field there as well.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, off the field.
In the offensive line room also.
Georgia's offensive line underachieved. We know what Searles is. We saw him. I said this earlier. They were 102nd in rushing. Carson Beck has a broken elbow. There we go. Brian McKinney doing some recruiting. I heard Vince Wilfork but did some recruiting as well here, who was a champion thrower in Miami. So you got an offensive line that's terrible at Georgia, considering they had multiple pro talents. We have an offensive line coach who most Canes fans thought he was a joke while he was here. You have a offensive line on the field that could not protect their quarterback. He's injured. Hopefully he's healthy now, but he got injured and he got beat up all year. And they couldn't run with Etienne, who I believe was like a fifth, fourth round pick. He was 102nd in rushing, the team, and they had a 5-star behind him. So what does that tell you is going on? And Beck threw for 3,600 yards. It's not like they couldn't pass to set up the run. So what you have is a program that is struggling at the particular position that he's being recruited for. And talk about off the field, I mean, these guys are maniacs. They're getting arrested every other week. They're hazards to society. It's not like, I mean, these are failures of discipline when it happens again and again and again. Miami and Georgia are recruiting the same kids. So it's happening there. It's not happening here. What kind of control do they have over their institution? And I'm not going to make that the front story, because to me, it's about offensive line recruiting or development. But like you said,
the stuff that they're talking about is not does not have anything to do with football or development of the player. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And there's always misconceptions of Miami, Coral Gables, and the whole deal. But when you look at Georgia, they're going to produce great defensive players and develop defensive players. They're going to win a lot. But at least under this current regime, they're going to get arrested at a higher rate than average, and their offensive line is not going to perform to their talent. So that's the reality of the situation. There's appeal to Georgia as a winning program, appeal to Georgia as a place that's probably a cool place to be at school. As a kid from Nixon, Missouri, and Athens, I'm sure it's a lot of fun. But, that doesn't mean that this PR campaign is true and the NACO's article is 100% not true. And it's all about just trying to make it look like if Cantwell chooses Miami, it's for the money.
Brandon asking if we talked about what Will Howard said about Miami. We did speak about that at length yesterday on the show with Mike. And again, it's just one of these things where it's interesting. Everyone's trying to perpetuate this thing that all Miami has is money to throw around. When the guy talking about it technically had a chance to come to Miami, and the guy who came here ends up becoming the first pick overall. So it would have maybe had a little more validity if Ward stunk it up this year and was a late round pick, and Miami, didn't have the best offense in the country, but it just doesn't have much credence to me when it's someone who is, saying it from a point of, I don't know. It doesn't have much backing to me. Doesn't mean much.
I agree with you. A lot of other news going on. Pete, pull up the article if you could find it about the this presidential commission.
I saw that. This? Yeah, our boy Cody Campbell is going to be on the board. And he was also mad at a NACO's leak last night. By the way, did you see what he said?
What did he say?
Let me pull it up real quick.
So Cody Campbell, just for those who don't know, oil guy, big money, major Texas Tech booster. Texas Tech, as you see from the portal rankings, it's LSU number 1, Texas Tech number 2, Miami Hurricanes number 3. Texas Tech is number 2 because
he deleted the tweet. Sorry, I'll tell you what it was after this, but go ahead.
So Texas Tech has basically bought their way into the conversation, and I salute them. I love it, but it is what they are a team that is. Miami overspent for guys too to make up for some poor performance. So I'm not saying this negatively, but Texas Tech has paid to play basically. And one of the reasons is they have Cody Campbell, the Matador Collective. These are a lot of oil guys, your landman types who are paying top dollar for recruits from an NIL perspective. Trump met with Saban, I should say, met with Trump. Trump spoke at the Alabama graduation. And Saban, as he's been an NCAA shill, there's the organization that covered up for his blatant cheating for his entire Alabama and LSU career. He's going to go to bat for the organization that protected his scheme. So he's trying to push for rules that are going to help the NCAA as an organization. Trump said, all right, well, there is problems with college sports, which there is. There needs to be some kind of guidance here. And he said, we're going to do a presidential commission studying college sports. Saban, you're one of the chairs. The other chair is Cody Campbell, who we were just talking about, the founder of The Collective, billionaire. I think this is very good news for the Miami Hurricanes because Texas Tech is not Alabama. They're not LSU. They're not Georgia. They're not Ohio State. The NCAA is not going to cover up for them while they pay players under the table to get around whatever salary cap exists. So my concern with all this regulation is, yeah, you make the NCAA a thing again, give it power, maybe under another name. You put a salary cap. The same people that were paying defensive tackles $40,000 under the table in cash, like Alabama for so many years, they now have an advantage. When you put Texas Tech on the table, they're in the same boat as us, which is being able to compete in NIL has leveled the playing field. In fact, more so for them because Miami has certain location advantages that Texas Tech doesn't have. They're really a money play. So I think that's good news that it's being balanced that way. My guess is that Trump probably just said, let's get one from one side, one from the other side. You guys figure it out. So that's why you have Saban and the Collective guy, because Saban's 100% NCAA shill and a coach. So he's going to go from that perspective. Campbell, I think, is going to be much more on the side of making sure that, number one, the athletes don't get their money artificially cut by these antitrust violations. Number two, the programs that are not traditional powers don't get squeezed out by some cartel like we saw last time, which pre-NIL, Alabama and Georgia were just dynasties with all their cheating. And then once you saw the playing field leveled, Georgia doesn't make the playoffs or makes the playoffs, but, isn't dominant. Alabama doesn't make the playoffs, loses to Vanderbilt. So you see, and Saban retires, coincidentally. Got a lot of energy for all this stuff. So this to me is a positive development. My personal opinion, and I say this with 100% honesty, we should have, I know they want to do it, but we should push as Miami and Canes Connection, everything else, get the Cavenders involved. The Cavenders are the face of NIL from the athletes. You want different, on a commission like this, you want different perspectives. You got the booster perspective, you got the coach perspective / NCAA perspective. Shouldn't you have the student athlete NIL perspective? I don't know who's better qualified to speak on that than the Cavenders.
Weren't they in the hearing months ago?
Oh, were they? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, or maybe it was Darren Heitner. And I think maybe he was talking about Darren Heitner, their attorney and close business consultant, and he's obviously the guy who helped Xavier Lucas with his stuff. And he's a Gator, but he's been great to Miami in the NIL era. He was big with the Ruiz stuff in the advent of NIL, and he kind of helped Miami navigate a lot of this stuff. And he was definitely a part of. I want to say the Cavenders were. I'm gonna try to find it out when they had they had these initial hearings. Let me try to find it. But yeah.
James saying you can fix under the table payments easily if you were caught first time, 3 years, no football, second time, 6 years, no football. The problem is they don't want to catch these. They want to catch different guys. They want to catch us. They don't want to catch Alabama when, half of Hawaii is living in a house with Tua's family and Tua's playing quarterback. What do you think's going on there? So, they're cheating in plain sight.
So there was definitely somebody
hired Saban at LSU. They were close friends. They golfed together frequently. So they just didn't want to catch Alabama. Alabama got caught cheating every year pretty much until Saban got there. Then they went on the run of a lifetime and they didn't get caught cheating anymore. And everybody else knew they were cheating. Guys, let's use some common sense.
Here you go, D. This was
there we go.
Yeah, I don't think this was this was something in Congress. And look at this. This is an even better picture. I'm surprised you didn't remember this. This is actually, you got Saban with the Cavender twins here.
Yeah, I missed all this. I'm glad. When was this?
This was months ago, man. This was actually February 20. Let me see here. I can't seem to find the date on this. March 2024. So
we got to see the table and look. Remember when Carson Beck, and thank you for Blue in the comments for bringing this to my attention. So remember when Carson Beck had that whole scandal where Hannah was talking about Carson Beck on a live mic? Remember that whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
Where was she?
At the UFC
And who was she with?
With a future hurricane.
A future hurricane, the beloved granddaughter of the president of the United States, who is a presidential commission. So to me, if you're Miami, I'm doing everything I can. Texas Tech is where they need to be. I got the Cavenders there. I got Kai. She's a minor, but she could be involved, in some way. And I say this not even joking. It sounds like I'm joking. As Miami, what Miami used to be in football, Miami is now in terms of influencers, right? You had the top influencers coming through your school, and athlete influencing is big business because they make millions of dollars. It's relevant to what these guys are talking about. Of course, the Cavenders were the biggest ones. You had Alex Earl as a non-athlete influencer.
Because you have these athletes who are going to make money disproportionate to their skill level. It's because of what their status is. And that's a whole nother bucket of player in this NIL.
They're the highest paid. I mean, Liv Dunn,
right.
I believe, is the highest paid of all these people. So in terms of athletes, so those are the ones you think are going to be part of this deal. And listen, forget what side you're on. The next big influencer, you're a golf influencer connoisseur. That's your world. I mean, I'm assuming that the next big influencer is going to be Kai when she's playing golf at UM. I mean, that's going to be a pretty big deal, whether you like her grandfather or not. That's going to be a big deal from a media perspective and from a social media perspective. So, if I'm UM and I'm trying to make sure my interests are protected here in this situation, I'm leaning on those channels because, as you saw in that picture, and appreciate Blue for bringing it up, you're right there already with two of your highest profile athletes.
Well, and you'd imagine that the president's not going to want to limit his granddaughter's earning opportunities either, or at least if he hears it from that perspective, right? Then it's a different ball game,
right? 100%, and that's one area where UM is different than these other schools. The influencing aspect of Miami is different. I mean, that's where the top ones are. So football or sports and non-sports. So down the road, let's just say, there's a wide receiver that has a huge TikTok, just doing silly dances. I don't know what they do on TikTok. I still haven't figured it out yet. I'm still too old. Let's say there's a wide receiver that's a 5-star that does little dances and makes millions off of the TikTok part of it, or the Instagram part. And he wants to go to Miami because that's where all the top influencers are. He wants to take pictures in front of all these beaches and stuff when he's not working out and playing football. If Miami can't make sure he's taken care of on the NIL side for his own influencing, they lose that advantage. So it's a real thing. And it sounds like a joke talking about it, but these are millions of dollars. Like, these are the highest paid NIL athletes. These are quite frankly, the athletes with the highest name, image, and likeness value in its purest form, separate from the pay-for-play part. So I hope Miami in this commission is presented as basically the face of this market, because it's a real thing. It's an advantage Miami has.
Yep, without a doubt. Anything else we need to get to here, D?
Someone's asking, is Kai Trump the biggest recruiting target?
She's signed already. So
yeah, pull up the Instagram, throwing up to you. So yeah, that's a done deal. So again, this is uncharted territory. But one thing we know about this stuff is it's about getting in the room. It's about PR. Saban caught Trump at the commencement.
By the way, the first story from February 2025 about it is Miami Hurricanes golf commit Kai Trump turns heads with massive NIL valuation. So
there you go. Look at this. So
she only trails Paige Beckers, Flau'jae Johnson, and Livy Dunn.
By the way, who's Flau'jae? Flau'jae Johnson's a women's basketball player.
LSU. Yeah, the LSU.
Yeah, so 3 women. Right. And then obviously the Cavenders, I'm sure, are in that category. Maybe not up there, and they just graduated, but I'm sure they were in that mix. Nick Isaac saying all those YouTubers and TikTok stars are leaving LA for Miami. Recent examples. No. Here we go. There we go. So, I mean, again, if this is the angle that needs to get us in the room of this commission, that's what it is. To me, it makes a lot of sense, especially considering where you're already at. It's not like you're trying to get in rooms or build relationships that don't exist.
Brandon asked, can you talk about what the deleted tweet from Cody Campbell was? And it was basically when Nakos had tweeted that he was going to be he was going to be the co-commissioner with Nick Saban. It was something along the lines of, were other cabinet members leaked before they were announced by the administration? And then other people were like, yes, they were. And he deleted the tweet. So I don't know.
Well, Nakos, man, that's controversial. Seems like a nice guy. Always getting in trouble. We're after him here.
Listen, as someone who's ruffled feathers before when it comes to breaking news, I can't I have to sympathize with him, because sometimes you have something. It's gonna get out there one way or another. So I don't know.
Yeah, listen, if you're gonna get out somewhere, get out to Dayland Mall, get out to the dining pavilion, get out to the #1 Cuban restaurant on the planet, 40 plus years, now at Dayland Mall in the very convenient dining pavilion location. NIL valuation, $5 million for Islas Canarias, those Croqueta County shirts. We got to get Kai Trump or the Cavenders, maybe Jackson Cantwell, whoever we can get down here in the recruiting class in some of these Croqueta County shirts for Islas Canarias. There you go. 7 different types of croquetas. OG ham gluten-free, mojo chicken, smoked fish, jamon serrano, kimchi mojo pork, spicy. That's a good one. Buffalo cauliflower for the vegans. And then you can get samplers of all of the above. Plus the tostones, the empanadas, the pastelitos. You got the whole arsenal at Islas Canarias. There you go. Chef's favorite, kimchi mojo pork. So, I think that's Johnny Lagoon's favorite as well. Bo, thank you. I wanted to get to this. So, Brandon, big win yesterday. Cuvée carrying. I was at the game. Awesome atmosphere. Vibes were impeccable around the team, the parents, the coach. Everybody's just loving life right now. FIU had been a thorn in Miami's side. These midweek games have been tough. You had a good start from Reese Lumpkin, the righty from Winthrop. Did a nice job. And then it got tight for a second. You had to use Brian Walters as your closer, which maybe you wanted to save him for this weekend, but he'll be ready when you need him. But ultimately, Daniel Cuvée hits a bomb, a no-doubter there in the 8th to give Miami some cushion, and then Miami was able to close it down. Game started with some fireworks. First pitch, Jake Ogden, Miami's stud shortstop, goes deep on the first pitch. Max Galvin, there you see him right there, who had a home run during the series this weekend against NC State on Sunday, hit a home run. The game got postponed. A game Miami was winning 2-0. So he had his home run taken away. But then first inning right here, he gets it right back. So just an awesome performance. Shout out to Adrian Lorenzo there. The boys are rolling. And if you guys are baseball fans, my guy Adrian Lorenzo right there, former MLB exec, big Canes fan, helping move things along. We have MLB podcast, really a baseball podcast, college baseball, MLB international, called El Big League Show on YouTube. We had Lewis Brinson on, former MLB center fielder, on the show that came out yesterday, talking about Japanese baseball, getting deep on the New York Mets. Just a ton of great, Javi Baez. If you're a fan of baseball, you will learn a ton. I just kind of sit back, ask questions, and learn from former MLB exec, former MLB players, and really just understand the game at a higher level. Talking to these guys, it is just a blast to do. We just started it. So check it out, El Big League Show on YouTube, 786 Sports Network. Like and subscribe. Just some really cool stuff there. Strongly recommend. If you're a baseball fan, check that one out. Got a question from Green Tree All-America. Do you expect a commitment from Torrey soon? I think that could happen sooner than later as far as where he picks. My prediction would be on Miami. Mentioned in the bank 2 days ago. I said, felt good about Keontae Scott. Felt good about Torrey. Keontae Scott part happened. We'll see on Torrey. I feel good about Torrey. And I think if Miami were to get Torrey, it would be a huge addition. Obviously, the question is going to be, he missed last year with a knee injury. Had a knee injury in 22 as well. In between those 2 years in 23, he played for Corey Heatherman at Rutgers as a linebacker and was outstanding. Probably one of the best players on the field, along with Ruben Bain. When you watch that Pinstripe Bowl again, he was making all kinds of tackles, sacks, getting in the backfield, running down sideline to sideline. Jacoby George with some speed and instincts. Big, long, class of 2019 was the same recruiting class as Sam Brooks for perspective on how old this guy is, but super talented, has played in the system with Heatherman, and to me would be exactly what Miami needs to just solidify that room when you play a team like Notre Dame. We'll see when the commitment comes. I expect it to be sooner than later, and I would bet on the Hurricanes unless something changes. Again, I don't think it will. Brandon asks, what time are you usually live on our Big League show? We don't go live. It's a pretty produced show. You know, you sit back, watch. You got the graphics taken care of. It's a lot more professional than than this operation we got going on right here. So a Big League show usually will come out Tuesday or Wednesday, and just talk about, you know, it's not like this show where we're talking about the day's news like right away. It's more about big picture baseball trends and guys, you know, taking you under the hood of players from an MLB exec perspective, analytics, you know, major league veterans, kind of trying to really understand what's happening in the game of baseball. P, you got a shout out here for the Knicks from Luis Delgadillo.
Just wonderful to be playing playoff basketball, man. This is what culture is all about. You saw that last possession. You see the comeback 2 games in a row. This is a ball club that will not be easy to kill. It's just great to have a coach who fights for his players, and his players fight for him. And this is New York basketball at its finest, man. Championship incoming.
I can't even hate, because I mean the Celtics to me are the championship favorites, or were the championship favorites, and you know, can't stand to see them win another one. So I'm perfectly fine with the Knicks.
It'll be 3-1. It'll be 3-1 headed back to Boston.
You know, listen, if the Knicks knock out the Celtics, I'm fine with that. They'll lose pretty quickly afterwards anyways. So that's a win-win for me as a Heat fan.
It reminds me of the Heat every year since LeBron left, you know. Except it's 50-50 for them to make the playoffs every year, but it is what it is, man. It's nice to have a organization that isn't stagnant, that will try to make moves, that will you know, get rid of people within the organization that are past their prime, and haven't made a move worth anything in you know, 10, 12 years. But it is what it is, man. Like I said, just sit back and enjoy the show, man. Just sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey, Pete, how old are you in 1999, the last time the Knicks won the East?
5 years old.
5 years old. Yeah.
And listen, the Heat just haven't had much success without Big Diesel O'Neal and LeBron. That is their that's the story of their franchise, and without them, there's nothing. Well, listen, like I said, sit back and enjoy the show, man. When the Heat have their next game in Summer League, I know you'll be very excited about that.
I will.
To see the next bum that they've drafted. And listen, we'll go from there.
Khalil Ware, future All-Star. Oh, I'm looking forward to see what guy we get at 20 that ends up being a star. But yeah, man, it's
like Precious Achua, like Shabazz Napier, like Justice Winslow. The list keeps going, man.
Let's see. So what do we got here? What do we got going on basketball wise? Anything new on the Canes basketball front?
No, Curtis Givens, who visited the other day, I think they look pretty good there. But look, man, they have like 3 scholarships remaining, and we'll see what happens there. They've got a couple things working, so we'll see.
What's Givens' deal?
Played 18 minutes a game last year at LSU. Had is a 4-star transfer right now. Was a top 40, 50 player in the country coming out of high school. Shooting percentages were not very good, but I think he's someone who will potentially provide you some depth. And look, 18 minutes a game in the SEC is a lot. Like that's an important experience. That, yes, the numbers aren't great there, but if you're talking about number 9 or 10 on the roster right now, then I'll take that all day. Yeah,
you got to fill out the roster. That's the hard part about what Lucas has to do, is to recruit guys to be 9 through 12 is not easy. I mean, when you have one in your roster, it's easier.
Yeah, I would love another big, and then just like a set shooter, pretty much. Maybe someone who maybe the offers right now aren't crazy as a shooter, but you take a chance as a guy who has like, you know, really high percentages at the previous stop. Maybe wasn't at a huge school, and you say maybe he can just maybe he can translate in a certain role here.
Yeah. That like highly specific role players that you know what you're getting. I think probably is the approach. I'm still fascinated by how the big situation is going to work out. As we sit here today, I think that, Malik, and by the way, I've heard his name pronounced 4 different ways. So maybe you could talk to one of your sources and get that name squared. That would be a good next time you talk to one of your sources, find out what Malik, how you pronounce his last name. I've heard Renaud. But the player from Indiana, originally from Miami, was one of the top scorers for Indiana off the bench later in the season, was really their star in the beginning of the season. Is he going to be playing with Uday in the front court together, or are they going to do what Indiana ended up doing, which is playing him as kind of like a backup 5, which is what he is more offensively as a player, because he doesn't shoot, he's a post scorer, and then maybe giving up some defense with him as the backup 5, because it doesn't seem like there's a backup 5 other than him on the roster, unless I'm missing somebody.
No, unless you played Malovich as like a way smaller 5, but I think Lucas wants to play big.
Yeah, and you could play Malovich as a 4 with Uday. That's something you could do as well. Stretch it out a little bit. So we'll see. Oh, Brandon's saying, well, Miami got to get a softball program. Too much talent.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, you talked about that one time.
I've talked about it before. I talked to the head man on this. There's not space. You got to build a softball stadium. And then once you do that, you then would have to basically, it all came about because I asked about men's golf, and I was told that they would need to add, obviously for Title IX reasons, another women's team. That team, the next team that they would be able to add would be softball, would be the logical explanation there, or the logical fit, but they don't have any plans, don't have space to build a softball stadium, if that would be the case. So listen, Canes Cat C says there is space. They had a donor donate 10 million to softball. I don't think there's space, man. I don't see there being space for a softball stadium anywhere on campus right now. I'm sorry.
Having money for like football, we got to send them some Derek Cooper, Jackson Cantwell, Kanye Pepe highlights. $10 million.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right, Pete, pull this team store Mark Fletcher deal for Saturday, which, listen, if you have kids or just like meeting these players, go out to the team store this weekend. Mark Fletcher, this guy's one of the most engaging, if not the most engaging student athletes we've had in Miami for some time. Just incredibly positive person, super good with kids, with fans of all ages. He is the guy that you want to meet for one of these meet and greets, and he will be at the Miami Hurricane team store this Saturday with my man Jeremy, my man Harry, out there at the team store. We got it at, first of all, 30% off site wide, which is a pretty good deal. If you're not local, go to MiamiHTS.com, get 30% off for that sale. You got promo code INSIGHT20 whenever you need 20% off. That's constant. So a lot of deals to be had at team store right now. And then this Saturday at 1 to 2 p.m. So Saturday at 1 through 2 p.m. this Saturday the 10th, Mark Fletcher, autographs, pictures, you name it, at the Miami Hurricane team store right across the street from campus. So you got a question here. Are you taking Ladd McConkey or 2024 X? Keep NFL bias out of it. McConkey was hurt a little bit in 23, if I recall. Obviously
McConkey ran a 4.39. I'm taking McConkey. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you got to give it to McConkey because of the speed. I do think that X, as a college player, you got to take the pro out of it. The guy was dominant, 16 plus yards per catch. I mean, he was just a dominant player. But yeah, McConkey was, McConkey's speed was unique because he had all the other stuff too, as far as route running and all that jazz. But we got Marrero asking, did we talk baseball? I thought I saw yesterday from distance, Marrero, but great win. You got to give JD Arteaga credit, man. This is a team that has stayed together and that has probably outperformed its talent, or at least performed up to its talent. You can't say they're underachieving. So shout out to JD. He had a tough situation last year where he got hired way after the portal seasons. So he kind of inherited a roster that wasn't built for success. This is what I'd say be his first real, Now, he was on the staff before, so you can't pull him totally away from what happened the year before. But this is the first kind of roster he put together, and so far, so good, man. You could potentially host a regional if you beat Virginia, beat Notre Dame 2-3, 2-3 at a minimum. So we'll see.
Brandon said, I wish we had men's golf. Pete for head coach. No, Woody Austin would be the head coach if that ever materializes. Someone who he's actually talked about wanting the job before, man. Woody Austin, former Cane, 4-time PGA Tour winner, second in the PGA Championship in 2007. So he's a little bit more qualified than a 9 handicap over here.
Listen, we'll let you guys get back to work. Appreciate everybody joining us live here. Almost 1,000 people on this Thursday morning, live talking Canes. So appreciate everybody's support. Remember, support Canes baseball, and go Canes.
Go Canes.